Let's talk about the greatest common factor, which we also call the GCF for short. There are two parts to your GCF. The first part is the biggest constant, which is a fancy way of saying a number that divides all of the terms. And then we need to look for the variable with the largest exponent that divides all of the terms. Now, I say that there's two parts to a GCF. Those are two parts for which we need to check. It doesn't mean that they both exist. You could have a GCF that's just a number or a constant, and then you could have a GCF that's just a variable, which is your letters, or you could have a combination of the two. However, if you cannot find a number that goes into all of your terms, and you cannot find a variable or letter that goes into all of your terms, we say that the polynomial has no terms in common, or no factors in common. The GCF is 1. The other way to look at it, instead of no factors, you can say if they have nothing in common, the GCF is 1. So let's look at the first example. We're going to identify the GCF of 4x squared, 12x, and 6. So we're going to start with the constant part of our GCF, or our number part of our GCF, because that tends to be the more difficult part. Now, when you're trying to find the number, the constant part, we're going to look at the smallest of the numbers. And our smallest number in this case is 4. Now, 4 divides 4. Cool. 12 is also divisible by 4. 12 divided by 4 gets us 3. Awesome. But when we take 6 divided by 4, we get 1.5, which is not cool. We need whole numbers, constants, integers. And that didn't work. Because that didn't work, we're going to look at factors of 4. So the next highest number that goes into 4 is 2. 4 is divisible by 2. 12 is divisible by 2. 6 is divisible by 2, which means that our GCF is going to include a 2. Now, if we look at our variables, our first term has an x squared. Our second has an x. Then our last one doesn't have any x's, which means that we cannot include x in our GCF, because GCF is only what they have in common. What can everyone give to the party or to the cause? Which means that our GCF is going to be 2. Let's look at example number 2. This time we're asked to factor, not identify or find. We're asked to factor out the GCF of 2x squared minus 38x. To do that, we first have to find the GCF. Our smallest number is 2. 2 divides 2, cool. 38 divided by 2 gets us 19, a whole number, which means our GCF is going to include a 2. When we look at the variables in each of the terms, the 2x squared has an x squared. The 38 has an x, which means that our GCF is going to include an x. The first guy could give us an x squared, but the second guy couldn't. We're not going to try to take more from people than what they can give. So our GCF is 2x. If they were just asking us to identify or find, we would circle it and be done. But this time we need to factor. When we are factoring it out, I'm going to show an intermediate step, and you can skip this step once you get comfortable with doing the mental math or the visualization, but you don't have to. You can always do this step. We're going to take our original problem, and we're going to divide each of the terms by 2 over x, because we're factoring it out. Whenever we're dividing by our GCF, when we're taking it out, factoring it out, we're going to put it out front of some parentheses. And then we're going to simplify or do the division. 2 divided by 2 gets us 1. X squared over x gets us x to the first. Carry my minus. 38 divided by 2 gets us 19, and x over x cancels out. I'm going to rewrite this one more time the way that you'll see it written by a mathematician. They're going to have 2x times, instead of 1x, they're just going to say x minus the 19. Either one of these is fine. You can submit either one and get credit. Just remember that 1x is the same as x. If you want to double check your answer, you are going to redistribute. You're going to multiply it back through. So you're going to have 2x times x plus 2x times negative 19. And when you simplify this or do the multiplication, 2x times x gets us 2x squared. 2x times negative 19 gets us negative 38x. We're back to the original, so our answer is good to go. Let's try another one like this. We have to factor. So again, factor, not just find, factor. 9b squared plus 3. Out of the two numbers, 9 and 3, 3 is the smallest. We know 3 is divisible by 3. 9 is also divisible by 3, so we know that part of our GCF is going to be 3. Let's see if we have a variable. We have a b squared attached to the 9, but we don't have a b attached to the 3, which means we can't put a variable in our GCF. It's just going to be 3. But we need to factor it out. So we're going to take our original, and we are going to divide by our GCF of 3. We're going to divide each of our terms. And if we're factoring out a GCF by division, remember that we are going to put it outside some parentheses. 9 divided by 3 gets me 3. My b squared is not going to change. Carry my plus. 3 divided by 3 gets me 1. Remember, we're doing division. Up when we had x over x and we said they canceled out, that's because x divided by x is 1. But we had the 19 there, so we didn't need to put 1 times 19. Now, we have talked about the bottoms up method, so you may be wondering if we need to factor inside these parentheses because we have a square. And that is a good thing to ask yourself to double check. Here we would have A equal to 3, B equal to 0 because there's no middle term, and C equal to 1. So if we try to do our product sum, product with the multiplication of A times C, which is 3, and a sum of our B, which is 0. Remember, A times C, sum of B. The only ways to multiply to be 3 are 1 and 3. 1 plus 3 gets us 4. And -1, -3, which gets us -4. There's no other ways to multiply to be 3, which means that we can't factor it any further, and just taking out our GCF was enough for our factoring problem. So our answer is 3 times 3b squared plus 1.